Welcome back, everybody. It's time for another edition of Silver and Black today, an Odyssey Sports original podcast, also heard on the radio, 101.5 KDON and 840 KXNT. Scott Gulbransen, Moton back with you, talking about the Raider game that was on Monday night. Oof. Talking about the Browns coming up on Sunday, a short week. And, of course, we're going to take your calls on the Raider Nation switchboard. I'm sure you have a lot to say. Again, I am Scott Gulbransen, your host. My co-host is Moton. He's a senior NFL writer at Bleacher Report. You can follow him on X at Moton, Moemoton. I am at LV Gully, and the show is SNB Today. Mo, wow, 33-16, the Raiders, yet again, for the third time this season, embarrassed, and I mean embarrassed, on national TV in front of that audience. And I think the national media, who've been giving the Raiders a bit of a pass due to Pete Carroll's long resume, have now come around and said, boy, this organization is just not in good shape. This game, Mo, from the beginning, the Raiders, again, from an offensive standpoint, really couldn't do anything with the ball. They got it in the red zone 3 times, couldn't score. Daniel Carlson, the good sign there was he actually made his field goals. That was good. So if you want to take something positive away from it. But, Mo, when you look at this game, the Cowboys executed well. We knew they'd come out, based on our interview last week, of course, on this show. We knew the Cowboys were going to come out very emotional after the death of Keeneland. He was, obviously, that whole situation was terrible for them. They made the 2 trades, Quinnen Williams, of course, and they got better. They got healthy on defense. The first time their defense, I think, has been stealthily good. And, of course, they were facing the Raiders offense. But, Mo, there's so much to talk about with this, but just give me your first impressions after watching this game, because I wanted to go to sleep before the game was even over because it was so bad to watch this Raiders team just unable to execute, unable to do anything. But give me your impressions about this shellacking on Monday night down at Allegiant Stadium.
It didn't start off well. I had a feeling that it wasn't going to go well just based on the first few drives. So you mentioned that the Raiders get down into the red zone. They can't punch the ball into the end zone. And this has been a perpetual problem for, it seems like, decades now.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we talked about this with Derek Carr. Now we're talking about it with Geno Smith, where the Raiders can move the ball, but once they get down to the green zone, red zone, then the offense stalls for whatever reason. Now, part of the reason last night was they couldn't run the football effectively. Ashton Jeanty, I believe, 6 carries for 7 yards. The run blocking was poor. We'll talk about the offensive line switching today, but they couldn't run the ball effectively. They went pass heavy, which gave the Cowboys an opportunity to just kind of sit back on their heels and play in coverage. So when you have a one-dimensional offense, or you make yourself one-dimensional in that sense, you're a lot easier to defend, especially in close quarters. The other thing, Scott, I just want to note, as I said, we'll talk about the offensive line. I still think the Raiders got their offensive line combination wrong, though. I do think I saw what they were trying to do, and I do think it was in good jest, but there still needs to be changes made, and there's one situation that's just unfixable, in my opinion.
Well, and let's begin with that, because I think some of the things, look, I always give all human beings, I don't care where they come from, what they do for a living, how successful or not successful they've been, a level of respect. So I'm not going to go and get personal with Pete Carroll because I don't know Pete Carroll. But I do know that he is in complete denial, and his tenure so far with the Raiders, not just based on win-loss record, but based on all the things that we've been talking about for weeks and weeks and weeks, now months on this show, is he's completely failed in every possible way you can fail with this team. In fact, some of the comments of the press conference after the game on Monday night yesterday was just inexplicable to me. He was asked, our good buddy Vinny Bonsignor asked some really good pointed questions to begin the press conference. He asked him about the run-pass game being out of balance. Vinny said, hey, 31 dropbacks and 3 runs in the first half. Only 3 rushes in the first half. And what does Pete Carroll do? He gets nitpicky. He says, quote, it wasn't 31 dropbacks. It was a bunch of play-action passes, and I really wanted to see us do that. There's only one person to look at. It's me, because I was influencing the game plan. I love the way we were chunking them, and we made big plays. I knew what was happening. Chip Kelly and I know what was going on. Then we stalled in the red zone, and unfortunately, the second drive, I think, was maybe it was the first drive. We got sacked a couple times, blah, 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 blah. But, Mo, again, so their game plan was not to run the ball. You drafted a running back 6 overall in the draft, and you're not going to use him. So I get the play action pass thing. I'm not saying that was a bad choice, but you have to have, I mean, every analyst before, during, after the game was on the same page. You have to, and Troy Aikman said it on the broadcast several times, you have to have some balance. The Raiders had no balance, and Pete Carroll, despite the fact that it failed miserably in front of everyone comes out in the press conference and says, no, that's what we wanted to do. So what does that tell you, Mo? If he comes out and says, we're not going to run the ball, first of all, to your point, we'll get to the offensive line in depth in a second, but you said you switched the offensive line. Okay, so I get it, because he later on mentioned, yeah, we wanted to do some more play action to give those guys a little bit of more time, right? Move Geno out of the pocket. Don't pressure them so much in pass protection. But it failed miserably. And again, it was the least amount of rushes in the first half for a Raider team since 2008. Please make it make sense for me, Mo.
Scott, I'm going to go back to this, and you may get a little upset with me saying this, but
no,
this is why you draft your offensive lineman before you get your running back.
That's fair.
This is why I was part of the crowd that said, fix your offensive line first, then get your running back. Did you see Travion Henderson last Thursday, by the way? He was drafted in the second round. How good did Travion Henderson look behind first-round pick Will Campbell on the offensive line, Scott?
Amen.
So if you cannot maximize the talent of your running back, you have no business drafting him 6. Take the best offensive lineman, because then at least you can elevate a second-round running back like Travion Henderson. Then at least you can protect your quarterback a lot better. I know this picking an offensive lineman isn't going to change this Raider team from 2-8 to 8-2, but this is why you fix your offensive line first. Scott, I have this philosophy. You build your roster inside out. I said this on the Bleacher Report Live last night. And I'm not saying Ashton Jeanty was a terrible pick, because there were a lot of people saying that on Twitter yesterday.
No.
But the logic makes sense, and this is why I repeat it over and over again. You win games in the trenches, right, Scott? Is that not true?
Absolutely, 100%.
So if you're winning games, if you have to win games in the trenches at the line of scrimmage, then you prioritize your offensive line. The Raiders did not draft an offensive lineman until the 3rd round, and neither of those guys are active. Caleb Rogers was inactive again, which to me shows stubbornness from this coaching staff, right? Because you have a switch on your offensive line, as I said, and Caleb Rogers is still not ready to even be active, let alone be on the field. He's not even active. I don't know what's going on between the development of these players, this rookie class, and Pete Carroll and the coaching staff, but there's just a failure on multiple levels there.
Right. And I have to admit, based on what we've seen this season with the offensive line, I'm fine to admit that I was wrong. I like Ashton Jeanty, and I think the broadcast team, the broadcast team said it best. I think it was Troy Aikman. He said, listen, Ashton Jeanty's a really, really good running back. He's going to be a great NFL running back, but he doesn't have a line to run behind. Again, they showed the stat. He goes 1 yard before he's contacted. It's the lowest in the NFL, the worst in the NFL. Okay. He gets no room to run, which is why they keep passing him the ball when they get an opportunity, but they don't run the ball. And Mo, here's the thing. Listen, I'm not saying right now, because it makes no sense to do it right now. It really doesn't. Pete Carroll's got to go. And John Spytek owns this too. He drafted Jeanty. Okay. And maybe that was influenced by Pete Carroll. We don't know that dynamic. We just don't. I know a lot of you are jumping to the conclusion Pete Carroll's in control. Fine, whatever. But Pete Carroll wanted to win now. He told us that. He was honest about it. Okay. Not only did he want to win now, but we talk about the offensive lineman. So let's get to that, because Pete Carroll is done. He needs to be gone. I don't care about any talk of continuity. BS. He has to be gone at the end of the year. Now, listen, they asked why he started Will Putnam at center and Jordan Merritt at guard. He said, quote, the competition during this time this week has been happening the last 2 weeks. So again, they have competition up front. We've been looking. We tried combinations. We looked at it. We felt like it was the best way we could go. Jordan had a really solid season at guard last year. Okay, then why was he playing center to begin with? And we felt really comfortable moving him. We tried Caleb Rogers. You guys, i.e. the media, were following that, and we looked at some different combinations, and this is the best we thought we could do. Did you watch that offensive line, Mo, last night? I just don't know. And then they asked if it's permanent now. Is Putnam going to be center? And he said, we're one day at a time now on those kind of choices. We'll come back tomorrow and see the film, blah, 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 blah. Then on Caleb Rogers, he's inactive. And this is Vinny's question. And Vinny was tweeting about this during the game as well. It says, now it's the time of the year to get young guys reps because the season's over, folks. You're 2-8. It's done. Okay. Coach Carroll says, I think it's your guys' way of thinking, i.e. developing young players and getting them snaps. Imagine that, getting young players snaps. That's not our way. We're trying to win games. We're trying to do the best thing to win games. I kind of thought that might come up. I don't know how to coach that way. Mo, is he saying he doesn't know how to coach that way, meaning he doesn't know how to put young players in when your season's over, you're not going to make the playoffs? What is he saying?
I think he's saying, now, go back to what he said, I think a week ago or 2 weeks ago. Pete Carroll's not used to being in a situation 2-8. Pete Carroll has never, with Seattle, he never had a season where he won fewer than 7 games. So he's never been in a situation where your season's basically over before Thanksgiving. So he may be telling the truth when he says, I don't coach that way, because his teams have always been competitive. This Raider team is much different than any of the Seattle Seahawks teams, Scott.
But Mo, let me jump in. I don't want you to not finish your point, but you have to adapt. Guess what? You're in that position. I don't care if you've been in the position before. I could give 2 craps. You're in that position now, and you're telling us you're still not going to change. So that tells me everything I need to know. He needs to be gone.
Well, there you go. You hired a 73-year-old head coach who's never been in a losing season, hasn't been in a losing season with his previous team. And now you're in a losing season and you're wondering why he can't adapt.
Fair point.
It's something totally new for him in his recent career. So he's going to continue to coach how he knows how to coach, and that's how he coached in Seattle, was to coach to win football games. And now you're expecting, not you, but now you can't expect him to just all of a sudden, I'm just going to adapt now because after 10 plus years in Seattle, I was competing. And now I'm going to change my coaching style. It's just not going to happen like that.
And that, my friend, is on Mr. Spytek and Mr. Brady and Mr. Davis to a certain extent, right? Look, bad choices. That's why I'm not saying the Raiders. We never said the Raiders were going to be a playoff team. A lot of you believe that. We didn't. We never believed that.
No.
But nobody thought it would be this bad. They are a bottom 3 team in this league, and they might be worse. Now, they play the Browns on Sunday. We'll talk about that in the next segment. They may be worse than the Browns. We'll find out on Sunday, won't we? They beat the Titans. Titans are that next team there. The Jets are obviously there as well. But this is don't tell me about why are you guys being negative? No, there's very little positive other than you have 3 or 4 players who are very good players. In the right situation, they would be superstars. Okay. Outside of that, this is a whole pile of dung. There's no other way to put it. Bad decisions were made at every level. That doesn't mean you fire everybody. The coaching staff, I don't think the coaching staff should be back in any way. I don't think any of them should be back. But when it comes to the organization, it's a mess too. They have to retrench, figure it out, and come back and get ready. All right, we're going to take a break. We do still want to talk a little bit about the offensive line, and then we'll get into the Browns game coming up here on Sunday at Allegiant Stadium. This is a fired up Silver and Black Today with Mo and Scott. We'll be back right after these words. All right, friends, it's time to tell you about our friends at Sleeper Picks and to give you some picks. Wait a minute. It's halfway through the season and you still haven't played daily fantasy football with Sleeper Picks, an official sponsor here of Silver and Black Today. What's wrong with you? I'll tell you what, go join now. Just download the app, put some money in there, and guess what? Sleeper will match a deposit up to $100. That's a free $100, folks. Get in there, do it. I'm going to give you some picks for Thursday night's game, and Mo will give you his later on in the week. But check this out. Do this. Use the code Jeanty. That's Jeanty. Yes, the little used running back of the Raiders. Sorry, had to say it. If you use the code Jeanty right now, they will match your deposit up to $100 if you come join us on Sleeper Picks. So let's get into this game. We have on Thursday night coming up the Bills and the Houston Texans. Now, we know CJ Stroud probably going to miss the game again. So I'm looking at this game as an opportunity for Buffalo to really pour it on. I'm looking at Josh Allen, 1.5 TD passes. I'm going more on that one. Not only that, but if you look at some of the alternate statistics here and what else is going on, you get an opportunity to join us on this. But anyway, Josh Allen, no brainer, 267 passing yards, 34 and a half rushing yards. I'm going over on both the passing yards and the passing touchdowns. He's going to get 2. And then the rushing yards over 34 and a half. I like that against that Houston defense, which is pretty good. But I think Josh Allen, as you saw the other night, is just turning it up the heat, and he's getting into postseason mode already. Then I'm going to look at James Cook, 68 and a half yards. I like the 40-plus rushing yards here if I'm going with that. So there's 3 picks for you. Now, on the other side with Houston, Dalton Schultz. I think they're going to have to rely on him with Mills in at quarterback for the injured CJ Stroud. 25-plus receiving yards. I like that. 39 and a half is the big number, but that's what I'm going to do. So here we go. Josh Allen, over 1.5 touchdowns and 34 and a half yards rushing. James Cook, over 40-plus rushing yards there. And Dalton Schultz of the Texans at 25-plus. Guess what? A $20 wager on this daily fantasy football picks, you're going to make $70.40. That's going to be your takeaway from this. So go do it. Check out Sleeper Picks. Good friends here of Silver and Black today. Don't forget, get that up to $100 match on your deposit by joining the Sleeper Picks app. Just use our code GENTY. It's exclusive code. Use the code GENTY. Join us on Sleeper Picks. Make sure you check out the app for rules and regulations and what applies. Also, don't forget, it's not available in every state, but most likely in yours. Join us on Sleeper Picks. Join me on my daily fantasy picks. Let me know how you did. Welcome back. It is segment number 2 of Silver and Black today. Thanks for being with us on the Odyssey Sports Network. Of course, you're listening to the podcast. If you're listening to us on radio, 1015 KDON or 840 KXNT, welcome back. Mo Moton, Scott Gulbransen back with you. And Mo, we were talking about before the break, the just inability for Pete Carroll to coach in this way, to play young players. We mentioned Caleb Rogers not being active again, even though now he didn't actually say it before the game, the week leading up to the game. So I will be fair there. It's not like he lied, but the understanding or the assumption was based on what he said from all kinds of media was that Caleb Rogers would at least be active. Not saying he was going to start. There was a big chance. A lot of people thought he might start, but he was not active. Again, by Pete Carroll in the post-game press conference saying, that's what you guys think. We're here to win games. Well, you've won 2 games. One against a really bad team. The first game of the year, I don't know where that team went and how they performed as well as they did in week 1, but that team doesn't exist anymore. And so this whole idea of having young talent, Mo, if John Spytek and Mark Davis, because he doesn't like being embarrassed, owners don't like being embarrassed on national TV, right? If they don't intervene here a little bit and say, Pete, look, we understand where you're at, but we have got to see who we have on this roster that's coming back next year. We can't just do Geno Smith's going to start again, even though he's freaking awful. He is brutally awful. Yes, his O-line sucks. I don't care. Don't make excuses. He still stinks. So I don't understand how the organization, forget Pete Carroll, how the organization can stand by and allow that to completely happen.
Well, this is why I say, Scott, the Raiders need an experienced GM, because that experienced GM will be able to push back on Pete Carroll. I'm sure John Snyder did that a lot in Seattle. When you have an inexperienced GM, a first-time, full-time primary general manager with a head coach of Pete Carroll's experience, it's expected that he's going to have a lot of influence. And I said this on the Bleacher Report Live Monday night, and I'll say it again. John Spytek, though he's less experienced at his position, much less experienced at his position than Pete Carroll is at his, he has to put his balls on the table and say, Pete, you got to play some of these young guys. I drafted 11 rookies. We're 2-8, and we're not winning with these old veterans that you have in the football game. We can't do much worse with some of these young guys, and at least they can learn from a lot of their mistakes. And then by 2026, they'll be better football players because they've gotten some live reps, some live snaps against real football teams. It just makes sense. As I said, Pete Carroll's not used to being in the situation. So someone above Pete Carroll has to sit Pete down and say, hey, Pete, you may not be experienced at this, but this is how we do things when we're 2-8. Because as the Rays,
Yes.
we're used to being, our season is used to being over by Thanksgiving. So this is how we do things over here at Raider Nation when we're not going to the playoffs. We start playing young players so that you can potentially have a better football team and have better depth in the following year. Pack it up, Pete Carroll. You're not. I understand you're trying to win football games, but guess what? At this point, you're playing to develop your players. You want to win, of course, but one of the primary focuses should be developing your young talent so that when you go into the offseason, as you said, Scott, you know who stays, who goes, who could potentially start, who's your second, third stringers when you go into the 2026 season.
Right. And Mo, here's the thing. You might be surprised that these young players come in. Yeah, they might struggle to make mistakes. That's what young players do. But you might actually give yourself a better chance to win as well. That's what I don't understand, Pete Carroll not seeing that. Because it's not working with the crap you're throwing out there. Okay? Forsyth is garbage. Absolute trash. No offense to him as an individual. I'm sure he's a nice guy. But he is trash at left tackle. I know it hurts not to have Colton Miller. I get it. He sucks. Anybody else want to prove me wrong? Bring it. I'll give you $100 if you prove me wrong. You won't. So you look at that and you say to yourself, what the hell is going on? So you're right. John Spytek's got to pull down the zipper, flip it out, and say, mine's bigger. Got to do it. If he doesn't, that's going to tell us a lot about John Spytek. I hate to say that, but that's the way it is. Now, again, we talk about the young players on offense up front. We talk about the young wide receivers. Look, I wasn't against Tyler Lockett. I don't care about Tyler Lockett. Get Bachman, get Besh out there as much as you can. Okay? Do it. Just do it. On defense, we saw the young defensive backs get torched last night. That's okay. Guess what? You're not going to win football games anyway. Let them get reps so that you can evaluate, are these players that you can develop with a coaching staff that knows how to develop young players, by the way, because hopefully that's what they try to get next year. Otherwise, Mo, this is not only coaching malpractice, it is organizational malpractice. And if I'm a Raider fan, I just want to see something different at this point.
So let's go through the issues and separate what can be fixed and what cannot be fixed. I'm going to start with the offense.
Good point.
Right?
Good point.
You got Will Putnam at center, right? You can't do anything about that because JPJ is out and Jordan Meredith, in our opinion, should have been a guard to begin with. The Raiders, in my opinion, admitted their mistake there. But now you have to ride it out with Will Putnam, who doesn't have much game experience. Okay, fine, because you don't have any alternatives. There are no quality centers out there in free agency right now at this point in the season. So you have to have Will Putnam there at center. Okay, now you have Jordan Meredith at right guard. Scott, I know he played both sides of the line last year, but he played mostly left guard. In my opinion, Dylan Parham had his best year at right guard. They need to flip Jordan Meredith and Dylan Parham at guard. Now let's go to the defense, right? Isaiah, can we end the Isaiah Pola-Miles starting
please,
safety
please,
experiment?
please.
We have to address that because I know there were a lot of Isaiah Pola-Miles supporters out there. He is not a starting safety in that position, especially in the deep safety role, right? Free safety. Can we end? And I feel like I'm picking on him because I've talked about him for weeks. Kaibu Kelly.
Done.
Bless his heart, but he is not a starting caliber cornerback in the NFL. We can't do this with Kaibu Kelly another week. I don't care if Darian Porter gives up 5 catches for 85 yards. I'd rather have Darian Porter out there getting torched than watching Kaibu Kelly. I know he had 2 interceptions against the Broncos. That was cool and everything. But you see what Kaibu Kelly looks like when he goes up against good wide receivers. George Pickens torched this dude over and over again. Scott, I don't think it was halftime. There was a tweet out from Benjamin Solak of ESPN. He said Kaibu Kelly had given up 5 catches for 87 yards and a touchdown. I don't think it was halftime yet.
No, it wasn't.
Can we please end the Kaibu Kelly experiment? I know Pete Carroll's going to say he's out there competing, and that's great. the little engine that could. I get it, but no, bench him, please. He should not be out there against the Browns on Sunday.
No, he should not. And it's just the other thing I want to talk about, because I know we got about 6 minutes left in this segment. We got to get to the Browns. But the other thing I saw last night, and I'm not saying anybody's given up per se, but Mo, the tackling, the yards after the catch against, listen, this team is so poorly coached. There's no discipline. We saw, again, bad penalties again. And we saw, I mean, you talk about some of those runs Pickens had, where he 3 missed tackles and he gains another 20 yards. And then on the touchdown, 2 guys gave up, including Jeremy Chin, a veteran. They just kind of, ole, go ahead, go in, score the touchdown. Mo, that to me means, and now I don't know, I'm going to assume the state of this locker room is not good, with the losing, number one, and number two, the lack of any sort of progress in any way. But dude, it's bad. Like, it's bad. Some of these guys, I look at those guys, and I'm not saying some of them don't have upside, but this is why you play young players. These veterans, they're gone, baby. They're gone. So why even let them see the field unless you have to for rotational purposes or injury? Because some of these guys are at this point collecting the check.
Scott, George Pickens alone embarrassed multiple Raiders defenders. George Pickens alone embarrassed. There were other mistakes, but George Pickens, just watch the highlight of George Pickens Monday night against the Raiders, and you'll see a lot of bad angles. You'll see a lot of questionable effort. I thought it was the first touchdown that George Pickens had, where he just kind of skirts in between defenders, and he was untouched. He was untouched. Not only were there bad angles for the tackle, he was not touched, and that's what made me question the effort. Right. Guys were just holding out their arm and hoping that they would catch him.
Like a clothesline. They were trying to.
And I'm thinking, what is? And I tweeted it as soon as I saw it. I was like, what is that? And people were like, oh, it's a bad angle. Like, no. There were some guys out there who weren't even interested, it looked like, in tackling George Pickens. Now, then you had Lonnie Johnson Jr., who tried to tackle, and that didn't work out very well. He slipped off the pass catcher, and there were just a bunch of broken tackles, a lot of yak for the Cowboys. And this is the thing, Scott, and this is why I'm with you on Pete Carroll has to go. He's a defensive-minded head coach, and his team is poor at tackling in Week 11. It's not Week 1. Remember what the excuse for Pete Carroll was? Oh, they haven't tackled a bit. It was preseason. We were like, oh, they're poor at tackling. But he's like, they haven't tackled very much in practice. So I was like, okay, we get it. Now it's 3 months later. We're in Week 11, and the team is still poor at angles and wrapping up and finishing tackles. That's on Pete Carroll's a defensive-minded head coach. And I'll say this again really quick, Scott. We're now in year 3 of watching Pete Carroll influence defenses play bad football. Remember what I told you a couple of weeks ago? His last 2 years in Seattle were not good. That Seattle defense was not good under Pete Carroll. It got much better under Mike McDonald. Now he's in Las Vegas, and the defense is poor again, and especially in the secondary, which is supposed to be his expertise. Because remember the Legion of Boom, Scott? We have to let these fond memories of Pete Carroll go and look at him for what he is right now, and he is not a very good defensive-minded head coach.
No, and you know what? I think the national media excuses the Pete Carroll didn't just forget how to coach football. No, but he has forgotten how to coach football effectively enough to win in the NFL. He knows football, no question about it. But guess what? Guys are I saw so many missed assignments yesterday as well. Defensive backs not knowing where they're going. Inexcusable at this point in the season. That's not professional football. That's like peewee football, where guys don't know what they're going because they're kids. These are veterans, some rookies, but so what? It's bad coaching and bad football. They all got to be gone. No question. All right, let's focus last couple minutes here, Mo, on the Browns. The Browns are going to come into Allegiant Stadium on Sunday, 2-8. They are almost an equal to the Raiders. Their defense, I think, is better. Their offense just as bad. They've scored 162 points. The Raiders have 155 on the season. Spare me your Shedeur Sanders conspiracy bullshit. And remember, I've always said I've liked Shedeur Sanders. I don't think he's a starting NFL quarterback. I just don't. Now everybody's got conspiracy. The Browns, Stefanski wants to get fired by because he's got some grudge against Shedeur Sanders and they want to ruin him. There's some collusion in the NFL that wants to punish Deion Sanders by making his son suck. Meanwhile, the Browns need a quarterback, and if they have such a great quarterback, they're just going to ruin him. Anyway, I'm just done with it. And listen, I got in a nice disagreement with our good buddy Phil of the two Phils. He seems to think there's a conspiracy going on. I totally disagree. I think it's whatever the reason they believe this, I don't know. But the Browns themselves can't move the ball on offense. Shedeur Sanders is going to start. Does this give the Raiders an open window of opportunity to actually win a game, Mo?
I think it does, and people are going to say, Mo, you're crazy. They're going to make Shedeur Sanders look like the next coming of, the best quarterback in the league again. But you have to remember, and Daniel, I don't want to pronounce his name, so I'm going to butcher it, but he covers the Browns for ESPN. And Daniel, after the Browns game, Shedeur Sanders completed 4 passes out of, I believe, 16 or 17 attempts, and threw an interception. He said that Shedeur Sanders had not practiced, had not even taken a snap with the starters since they drafted him. So he has he came in there cold because Dylan Gabriel left with a concussion in the middle of that game. So Shedeur Sanders came in the middle of the game, and he hadn't played with these guys at all. Remember, he was a third stringer. So I expected Shedeur Sanders to stink in that situation.
Yeah.
Now, he's getting a full week of first team reps. He should be better prepared. Doesn't mean he'll be good or great. But what I will say is that the Browns offense isn't very good, but they do have Quinshon Judkins. And that's what the Raiders have to focus on, is stopping Quinshon Judkins on the ground. Because if he goes wild, then the Browns could definitely win this game, and he'll help Shedeur Sanders, just get him comfortable in the pocket. But with the Raiders and the Browns, this is going to be a game where some fans are going to say, I don't care if the Raiders win or lose, because if the Raiders lose, then their draft position is, in good shape as far as getting a top pick, because the Browns, these teams have the same record of 2-8. And there are some fans that are going to hear it and say, no, I want to see my football team win no matter what, because you don't know what's going to happen down the line. The Raiders may wind up winning games later in the season and still have the Giants on the schedule. So I think this game will be a game that the Raiders could win. I know that's something some fans want to hear, but Shedeur Sanders playing his second game, starting in his first, with the inexperience he has with the starters. This should be a game that the Raiders can take advantage and finally look like an actual football team.
Well, and I think it's the last possible game they can win. I really do. And I still don't think they will win, because I don't think the offense can move the ball. I don't think, look, Cleveland's defense is not like they're a top 5 defense. Don't get me wrong. I'm not going to overplay how good they are. But Myles Garrett's going to tear some ass against this Raiders offensive line. And Geno Smith, who has zero confidence, has zero ability to see receivers or to hit receivers most of the time, is going to really struggle. So it's going to be a close one, and we'll see what happens. But if you want to see the Raiders maybe win a game, this will be, I think, your last opportunity to do it. All right, we're going to step aside when we come back and get to as many phone calls as we can in the time we have left. It's Mo, it's Scott. This is Silver and Black Today. We're coming right back. Welcome back. It's time for the home stretch here, the final segment of this edition of Silver and Black Today, an Aussie Sports Original podcast on the radio, 1015 KDON and 840 KXNT. We're going to get right to your calls. Mo, as you can imagine, people have a lot to say. We're going to get to Jay out in Pennsylvania. First up, here we go.
Hey, guys, it's Jay from PA. Well, another disgusting showing by the Raiders, but what do you expect? But don't worry. They're 2-8. There's 7 games to go. The season's ruined. You're not playing your rookies, but they'll ruin their draft stock as well. You can't ruin the season and have a good draft if you're the Raiders. So they're going to go 3-4 to end the year, I'm sure. But my question to you guys is, what is the standard? What are we basing the standard off of? Because I'm hearing like all these talking heads outside of you guys that are like, well, that's not that bad. They're not doing that bad. He wasn't that bad. Is that what it's come to for Raiders? That's not that bad. Pete Carroll, he's 2-8. He's doing what he can. I mean, it's not a winning mentality, and winning the last couple games isn't going to change that, because it's what we've been doing for the last few years. what is the standard for the Raiders? I love what you guys do. Have a good one, guys.
All right, there's Jay in Pennsylvania. Mo, you've been saying this for weeks. Raise your standards. The standards for the Raiders right now, and let's face it, some of you out there in Raider Nation, is garbage. You're looking for the glimmer of hope. I get it, Mo, but it's about winning championships. And they are not even close to being a team with that focus.
I'm done with moral victories when it comes to the Raiders. I've been
Right.
doing moral victories with the Raiders for 20 years now. And it's about time they turn it around at some point, because this is why I went on my John Gruden rant, was that a week ago, because there were people saying, well, at least with John Gruden, we were headed in the right direction. And I was like, he had 3 full seasons. He didn't have one winning season in that time. And when they went to the playoffs, he wasn't even the head coach. And that's what you're longing for. The John Gruden tenure, he was
Dude.
way under 500 as the head coach. So that ties into the point, JP, for PA. The standard for Raider Nation, and I'm not going to say the whole fan base, but for a lot of people, a lot of fans, it's very low because they haven't seen much success for this football team outside of a couple of playoff appearances.
And Mo, there was numerous examples of people, Raider fans, at Allegiant Stadium with signs wanting to bring back Gruden. Get out of here. Freaking A, raise your standards, fans. I mean, are you kidding me? Let's go back 20 years. Really? 20 years weren't good either. So it's just crazy. Raise your standards. Good call, Jay. All right, now we're going out to Pastor Mike behind bars.
Scott, Mo, Pastor Mike, I'm back. All right. Well, you know, that Romo video that you sent on Twitter, exactly the way I feel, especially the last part. I'm pissed. Yeah, I'm pissed. The result of this game. It was just horrible. And in the post game, they asked him, Pete, about the offensive line and what they changed and that. And one of the things that he said that kind of irritated me a little bit is like, these are pretty much the same guys. You know, Colton's not there right now and JPJ is hurt, but pretty much the same guys. Then why is it so bad? Because I said it and I said it earlier. Because you took the starting center and you put him at right guard, you put the right guard and you put him at starting starting center. And then you had, you know, Dylan Parham on, you know, opposite sides. So it was just, everything was just all jumbled up, right? And so this is a product. This offensive line is a product of this coaching staff and the decisions that they made. And the fact that Caleb Rogers wasn't even dressed is criminal in my opinion. So, I mean, I'm not calling necessarily for anybody to get fired, but they have to address the offensive line. If they can't do it, Jeanty can't do anything, Gino can't do anything, what can we expect? So, on to the next one, I guess. Bring on Shadur Sanders. Have a good day. Raiders.
There's Pastor Mike. Thanks for the call. Mo, I saw three Dallas third-round picks contribute significantly last night for them. Now, Dallas has been a mess this year. Don't get me wrong. They've had their problems, obviously. They're climbing back out of it now. But you have your third-round pick sitting in street clothes. So that's an indictment of the organization and the coaching staff. But Pastor Mike is absolutely right about switching up the offensive line. You had an offensive line last year, and Vinny said in the post-game presses they weren't very good last year either. And then Pete Carroll brings out the excuse bus. Oh, yeah, well, it's the same line. Oh, so you didn't think about improving the line? To your point about the draft? Well taken. There you go. All right, we're going to get to Anthony in Idaho.
Scott, Mo, this is Anthony from Idaho. Yeah, so it's not even the end of the third quarter. It's already 31-9. I'm pissed. I'm sure a lot of people are. I don't know, man. Just feels like a humiliation ritual of some sort towards the fans. It just seems like sometimes the fans, I don't know, I feel like the fans are being like humiliated. Like the team actually just likes to humiliate its fans. Because it's like there's like zero sense of urgency. Like at any given point of the game, there's like zero sense of urgency outside of like maybe a handful of players. What is up with Chip Kelly not utilizing Jeanty? It just doesn't make any damn sense. I don't know how many times we've done. I don't know why we're putting the ball in Geno Smith's hands when it has been shown over and over again this season that he will turn the ball over eventually, at least once every game, probably twice. The play calling has been very weird. Defensively, I feel like, I do think Patrick Graham will be gone soon. I think he'll be the fall guy, and that's unfortunate because I know for a fact that he is not the problem. John Spytek had a ton of cap space this offseason. Like, forget the draft. He had a ton of cap space to help fill this roster with, like, legitimate talent on that side of the ball, and he did pretty much next to nothing of significance. So we're just putting it all on Patrick Graham, Max Crosby, and that's it. So, I think Patrick Graham has had a good run, and I think he deserves better. And that's unfortunate. But, yeah, very underwhelmed about what Pete Carroll and company have done with this team, and I just don't know what to do from here. I don't know what they're going to do. So I wish I had more answers. I hope you guys have some answers. I don't think anybody really knows. So, yeah, we'll see.
There you go. There's Anthony in Idaho. I disagree with him on Patrick Graham.
Here's what I say about Patrick Graham, right? I think Patrick Graham's a decent D coordinator, but you got to remember, now you're working with Pete Carroll, who's going to have influence over defense. You look no further than the secondary. The Raiders basically tore up their secondary with guys that fit the mold of what Pete Carroll's looking for: bigger, longer cornerbacks. That's why they let go Jack Jones. That's why they traded Ja'Cory Bennett. I'm not saying those guys would have vastly improved the defense, but that's why they made the moves they made. One other thing I want to touch on really quick, and I think it's been glossed over, and I should have addressed this in the first segment. One of the answers I'm going to provide you, Anthony, about what's going on with the offense or what went on with the offense on Monday night, the answer is in the postgame press conference. If you listen to Pete Carroll, he said that he had influence over the game plan, the offensive game plan. And in my opinion, that means Chip Kelly's in some hot water. Chip Kelly's in some trouble. Anytime your defensive-minded head coach has a major influence on the offensive side of the ball, it's usually a precursor that either A, Chip Kelly's going to eventually give up play calling duties, or B, the other, not extreme, but the other factor, he could be fired. Initially, I didn't think they would let Chip Kelly go after a year because he's the highest paid offensive coordinator. But after hearing that Pete Carroll had influence over the offense Monday night, and that's why they went pass heavy, and this is why people are going to say, oh, Chip Kelly. This was a Pete Carroll thing. If you're screaming about why Ashton Jeanty didn't get enough carries in the first half and why Geno Smith was having so many passes, that was Pete Carroll. He admitted that in the postgame press conference.
He did, but dude is making $6 million to call the offense. If the head coach has to step in, you should be gone. And listen, Chip Kelly's offense is next to last in the league. They can't score points. They can't move the ball. They can't score in the red zone. I mean,
Chip Kelly's in trouble, in my opinion, Scott.
He's in trouble. And look, you owe him the money. Money's money. It doesn't really matter. People get focused on them. Oh, they're not going to get rid of him because he's $6 million. Bullshit. They'll get rid of him if they have to. And maybe it comes. Hey, listen, if they get embarrassed, not saying it'll happen. They get embarrassed against the Browns, he might be gone right now. I mean, if he has to take over duties, if they take away play calling duties from Chip Kelly, that means he is gone because Chip Kelly wouldn't accept that. I just don't think he would. Give me my money. I'm out of here. I'll go wait for my next job. I think that's what. All right.
I honestly think, really quick, Scott, I honestly think that relationship may be beyond repair at this point.
And it started early in the season, which was not a good sign.
When he criticized him.
I'm going out to Minnesota now. Here we go.
Hey, boys. Ivan Vandy from Minnesota. I am absolutely convinced that Chip Kelly got a contract he couldn't deny, and he knows he's going to get it paid at all, and he's trying to get fired at this point. 4 runs, 2 to Jeanty at halftime with something close to 30 passes from a crappy quarterback behind a crappy line. Sickening. Like, this team is a joke. But I guess that's what we'll deal with. But I don't know. I'm just sick of it. I want to give coaches a chance, but they don't even give you a chance to give them a chance. So anyway, go Raiders.
There's Ivan Vandy up in Minnesota, almost speechless over the disgust that he has for what's happening with the Raiders. All right, we're going to Chavi out in the Bay Area.
Scott, this is Chavi from the Bay Area. Just finished watching it 3 and out after halftime. I'm so sick of this coaching staff making changes. They got to fire everyone, even the GM, because the players he picked or the draft didn't show up. They're not playing. They're inactive. The roster sucks. I don't know if it's a Pete Carroll thing, but yeah, just done, man. Time to start over. I'm not for firing people consistently, but that's what we do. But it's time to get new coaches in here for next year. Thank you.
All right, there's Chavi from the Bay Area. Going to sneak in one last call. Our buddy Tarek, who I'm sure has a lot to say.
Hey, boys, Evan Vandy from Minnesota.
Oh, wrong call. Sorry. It must have been an old call. So, Tarek, sorry, man. Call back in. We'll get you back on. All right, Mo, go ahead. Yeah.
I have one thing to say to the previous caller, Shavin, right? So
yeah,
here's the thing, and going forward, right? The Raiders obviously aren't going anywhere, and at 2-8, we talked about it. Pete Carroll's got to learn to develop what he has, and John Spytek has to sit down and have a conversation with him. But as far as Pete Carroll being, because I know a lot of people are going to say it's Pete Carroll one and done. And again, I don't see Mark Davis wanting to start over. I would definitely, you and I are on the same page with this guy. I would fire Pete Carroll, right?
Yeah.
But the one coach I'll say to Shabby, one coach I'll say that the Raiders should keep around, whether he's a defensive coordinator, I wouldn't hire him as the head coach because I prefer an offensive minded head coach. One coach I would keep on staff is Rob Leonard. So I think of all the units on the Raiders roster, I think the defensive line has probably been their strength in certain stretches. I know it's not a game changer in any sense. I know they have Max Crosby there, and I know Malcolm Kuntz has been a disappointment. But I would say Rob Leonard is a quality coach, and I think they should keep him. Whether you give him defensive play calling responsibilities or whatever the case may be, keep Rob Leonard on staff. I think he's a quality coach. And whoever they hire, if they do move on, should consider carrying over Rob Leonard to coach that defensive line.
Yeah, and there's always, new coaching staffs come in and they look at what's there, and if there's somebody of quality, there's a good chance they try to keep them if that person wants to stay. It's hard, I think, for people to go into that Raider organization and want to stay because it's been so dysfunctional. But I'll say this one more time, and I've heard a lot of other podcasts, Raider radio shows get on board with this, including our buddy Murph, which is they need somebody to make the football decisions, and it can't be Mark Davis. They need a president of football operations who hires the GM, hires the coaches, fires those guys when they have to, whatever the thing is. Mark Davis just needs to sit there, get the pitch on why the president's doing what he's doing, and that's it. And listen, it's not a bad thing against Mark. He just doesn't make those good decisions. He's not a football guy. He grew up around it, but he's not a coach. He's not a GM guy. He's not a guy like his dad who was a complete student of the game. And that's okay. You're the owner. That's fine. Just get out of it. Because this franchise, one more, again, another bad decision, and you think the fan base is pissed now, it just gets worse. Mo, we're talking on this Tuesday. Let everybody know what you got going on this week leading up to this short week until Sunday's game against the Browns.
I have Bleacher Report Live coming up. I'll talk more in depth about why I think Chip Kelly could be fired in the offseason. I wouldn't say it's imminent. I'm not a reporter. I don't have any inside information. But I'll say this one more time, Scott, really quick. Anytime a defensive-minded head coach takes over or has major influence, as Pete Carroll says, it spells trouble for the offensive coordinator. So I'll talk about that in the Bleacher Report Live. I also have an article out on Sportsnot breaking down Browns and Raiders, what I expect Shedeur Sanders to do against his Raiders defense, and maybe thinking that the Raiders could eke out a victory at home and make their home fans that are in attendance a bit happy about the win, the ones that aren't into tanking, that is.
Yes. That's if the Raiders don't give you the gift of a turkey right before Thanksgiving, a turkey of a game. We'll see what happens. But, man, it's been tough. But listen, make sure you call in if you want to be part of the next show, 702-900-7869. We'll be back next Tuesday. That's right, after the Sunday game against the Browns. So stay tuned for that, and make sure you follow everybody on X. Mo's at Moton. I am at LV Gully, the show SNB Today. And don't forget to subscribe to the podcast wherever you get your audio. If you're watching us on video, do the same there. Hit the thumbs up and the notification bell. Mo, my friend, take care of yourself. And I am sure I'll be I'll be texting with you during Sunday's crap bowl between the Browns and the Raiders.
Take it easy, Scott. You were fired up today, but it was a good show being fired up. And we should be. We have to cover this football team at 2-8 and all the silly decisions that they make. But keep your head up, Scott. Keep your head up, Raider Nation.
All right, there you go. For our producer at Odyssey, Mr. Mike Robier, our producer on the radio is Mr. Mark Bonilla in Las Vegas. For Moton, I'm Scott Gulbransen. This has been Silver and Black today. Have a great week, Raider Nation. We will talk to you soon. Bye-bye.